everybody, welcome back to my channel. We are canning again. Yesterday we did our potatoes and today we are gonna start with doing some beef stew. So if you would like to see more of that, stick around. So we have been prepping all of our ingredients for our stew and we are going to just pack these right into our jars. I've got 7-quart jars in the canner on a very low heat just to get them a little bit warm. But my ingredients are all room temperature except for the beef. It's a little bit cold, but I've had it out on the counter for a little while. I'm gonna be using some warm but not boiling water, and I'm gonna be adding some salt to mine as well, but that's totally optional. I have our grass-fed beef that we were lucky to have on our farm this year and butcher. So we've got grass-fed beef stew meat cut into small chunks, maybe about 1 inch or so, varying in size. And then we've got our white potatoes. These are russet potatoes we grew this last season, and these are also cut into about 1/2 to 1 inch chunks, and I rinsed them in cold water really thoroughly a couple of times. So those are all ready to go. We've got some celery, some of our homegrown onions, and some organic carrots. These were bought at the grocery store. The rest we have from our farm. So that is what I'm going to be putting in, but you can play with the ingredients and add what you want and leave out what you want as long as they are ingredients that are able to be canned. You can go ahead and play with the recipe a little bit as well. Like I said, I'm going to add some salt, but you can leave that out, or you can add a few additional spices if you like those as well. But I'm gonna go ahead and grab my jars out and put them on the counter, and we're gonna just go ahead and start filling those up. All right, so we're just gonna start putting everything into the jars. I've got nice clean hands, so I'm just gonna start putting meat in there first, and we're just gonna layer this in. I'm not gonna weigh it or anything, but if you want it very particular, you could put your jar on a scale to get them to all about the same weight if you prefer. I've got 5 pounds of stew meat here, so I'm gonna try to just put it fairly evenly. I do have some more meat if I need it to fill up my jars, but I've still got my canner. It's got water in it. We're pressure canning this today because it's obviously low acid. But I've got it warming very, very low. All right, this is gonna be pretty good, I think. That should be good. All right, so I'm gonna set that aside and I'm gonna wash my hands real quick. All right, so now we're gonna just go ahead and add our potatoes. These are just raw potatoes. They are cleaned, but they are gonna have starch in them. So your stew will definitely be a little bit cloudy at the end, and that's okay. Everything is going to make your juices cloudy in the end, so it's not that big of a deal. It's gonna turn out great. It's gonna be super yummy. And I've probably got 2 or 3 cups of everything here. Hopefully that'll end up being the right amount. I might want a little bit more potato, but I've got more set aside in case this happens. All right, put some more in there. It'll be all right. Okay. And then we're just gonna add the rest of our ingredients. So we'll put some celery in. And like I said, you can really customize this however you would like. If you don't like celery in yours, feel free to leave it out. That's one of my favorite things in something like this. I think this is going to be the perfect amount. We'll do onions next, I guess. And we're gonna fill these to 1 inch of headspace, which is about this bottom big line here on your jar. And we can squish things down a little bit, but we don't want them to be packed firm to where the water can't get in there. So keep that in mind. Want to try to keep some room for carrots. Okay, let's put a little more in there. A little more in there. Should be good, and then we'll go ahead and get some carrots in there. Make sure that we're not overfilling them. That should be good. My husband's not super crazy about cooked carrots, so it's probably good that I did those last to make sure that I don't have too many. If I have less of anything, it's best for it to be carrots. Put a few more in there. Dumping stuff all over the place. That should be good. Put a little bit more in that one. That one could fit some more. All right, I think these look pretty good. All right, so next we're gonna add our water, and since these are room temperature, I didn't wanna put in boiling water, so I'm just gonna use, my water is a little bit warmed, but it's not boiling, and my canner is a little bit warm, but also not boiling or steaming or anything yet. Actually, first let's put in our salt. So if you're doing pints, you could do half a teaspoon. For quarts, I'm gonna do 1 teaspoon, and you can use whatever kind of salt you want. I am using real salt because that's all we use. These look amazing. These are gonna be so good, you guys, and so pretty on the shelf. All right, now we are ready to pour in our water. So again, we're gonna pour that water into 1 inch of headspace. I do have my measuring tool, and we're gonna pop the bubbles, make sure that there's no air pockets down there, and then we'll adjust our water level again at that point. Make sure you don't pour too fast, because when you have a lot of food in there in your jar, it'll surprise you and suddenly be overfilling. So make sure that you don't pour too fast, or you might overflow. All right, so now we're just gonna get the air out of the jars. So we're gonna stick it kind of just all over around the edge to just make sure that we don't have any big air pockets in there. See all those bubbles coming out? And then once we do that, We're gonna kind of shove everything back down under the water a little bit. And then we will re-measure our levels here. So you could use a spoon. I'm just gonna use my hands because they're clean. All right, that one is perfect. So you wanna be about this line here, or you can measure with your tool to make sure, whatever you're comfortable with. That's perfect. All right, so now I have a clean rag. This is a cut off of one of my towels, and I'm just gonna dip it in some vinegar, and then we're gonna wipe the rims of all of our jars nice and clean. Make sure we don't have any grease from the meat or any sort of salt particles, and it's a good time to just make sure that you didn't miss any cracks or breaks on your rims that would affect your seal. And then we're gonna put on our lids and our rings to fingertip tight. Make sure that you check the rubber seal and around the edge to make sure that you don't have any damage to your lids. Last year I did have some brand new boxes of ball lids that were dented, and I had to toss them. All right, and then we're just going to turn our rings on here to fingertip tight, which basically means as tight as you can with just your fingertips. We don't want to get our wrist into it. Like that. I am so excited to have these on the shelf. We've had other soups, homemade chili, and a really good chicken soup that I would pour into a pot, a couple jars of the chicken soup, and add some rice to it, and it was so good. So I can't wait to have some stew on the shelves. All right, these look beautiful, and we are ready to put these into our canner. Alright, so we've got a few inches of water in the bottom of our canner. You're going to want to look at whatever brand canner you're using, and it'll tell you how much water you should have in there. Alright, we got our jars all into our canner, so we're going to go ahead and put our lid on. It's going to depend what canner you're using, so make sure that you follow the directions of your canner. And I'm going to turn the stove on and get it going on a medium heat. And we're gonna bring this up until we start seeing steam come out of that hole, and then we'll be right back. All right, so we've been venting steam for 10 minutes now, so I'm gonna go ahead and put my weight on, and we will start bringing up our pressure in the canner. For me here in Michigan, I'm gonna be doing 10 pounds of pressure in my canner, but you're gonna follow whatever guidelines for your area. So I'm gonna go ahead and put my weight on, and we're gonna start bringing that up to pressure. Once we reach our designated pressure, we're gonna go ahead and start our timer for an hour and a half or 90 minutes. All right, so our jars have been processing for an hour and a half, and everything is done. So I went ahead and turned off the stove, and I'm gonna let the canner sit here until it comes down to 0 pressure. And once I'm sure it's all the way down to 0 and there's no more steam in there or pressure built up in there, then we can remove the weight and the lid, and then we'll wait another 10 to 15 minutes or so. Let those jars sit inside that canner, come down and equalize, and then we'll pull them out onto the counter and let them sit for about 12 to to 16 hours or so. At that point, we'll clean our jars off, make sure everything is sealed, and we'll label them and get them down into the pantry. All right, these have been resting in here for a while, so my timer just went off. I'm gonna go ahead and pull the jars out. I did put vinegar in the water, but there's still a lot of buildup on the jars, but they look so tasty. All right, there's our 7 jars of home canned beef stew. Once the jars are cleaned off, they're gonna look super tasty. They're very hot still, so we're gonna leave these on the counter until tomorrow, and then we will clean them up, label them, and get them in the pantry. I hope this video was helpful and that you enjoyed canning with me today. If you did, please subscribe. I've got more videos coming out about canning, and we will see you guys in the next video.